It was supposed to be another routine transfer of power until it wasn't. The air was electric, the stakes. Unprecedented, the symbolism impossible to ignore. And what happened on January 20th, 2025 will be debated, dissected, and replayed for decades to come, because this wasn't just an inauguration, it was a dramatic re-entry, a seismic power shift, and a parade of shock moments that left even the most seasoned political veterans speechless. It began with whispers. Then came the visuals, elaborate staging, roaring crowds, and an energy so charged it felt less like a political ceremony and more like the opening scene of a blockbuster. Donald J. Trump, in an extraordinary twist of American political fate, returned to Washington not as a former president but as the only man since Grover Cleveland to reclaim the office in non-consecutive terms. This moment wasn't just historic. It was cinematic. The Capitol, draped in patriotic spectacle, was a battleground of imagery where tradition clashed with spectacle and symbolism danced dangerously close to provocation. The crowd, a swirl of Trump loyalists, political elites, and curious onlookers. But it was the front row that truly sparked whispers, faces you wouldn't expect at a presidential inauguration. Former presidents Barack Obama, George W. Bush, and Bill Clinton were all in attendance. But their expressions weren't neutral. Some carried a weight of memory, of rivalry, perhaps of something unspoken. And then there were the power brokers from a different realm, tech titans seated just feet from the oath-taking platform. Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, Tim Cook, not just attendees, but symbols of a changing guard, their presence a quiet message. The new halls of power are no longer limited to Washington. When Trump emerged wearing a sharp black overcoat, his iconic red tie in place, the crowd ignited. His posture was familiar, his smile calculated, and standing beside him was Melania Trump, poised in an elegant powder blue ensemble that felt like a deliberate nod to her first inauguration appearance, familiar, yet upgraded. Then, in a moment that felt almost too awkward to be real, Donald leaned in for a kiss and missed. A slight misstep in choreography. A meme was born in seconds. The world laughed, the internet erupted. But beneath that moment of levity, a storm was building, because Trump's inaugural address didn't follow tradition. Instead of lofty unity or cautious diplomacy, he delivered cryptic lines and aggressive teases. He spoke of reclaiming not just power but realms, he hinted at redrawing global influence, rebranding entire regions, and making moves that would place America back on top, but in ways no one had anticipated, and that was just the beginning. The guest list itself felt curated to provoke. Reality star and longtime family friend Kim Kardashian made a bold entrance, instantly sparking rumors of her own political ambitions. The Trump children flanked their father Ivanka, Don Jr., Tiffany, all expected, but it was the silent shadow beside them that stole the show. Baron Trump, no longer the quiet child behind the scenes, no longer hidden from the spotlight. What viewers saw, what they couldn't unsee, was the transformation of a boy into a towering, magnetic, quietly commanding young man, but more on him later. Because the day had just begun and the spectacle was far from over. As the national anthem's final notes echoed across the National Mall and the formal ceremony drew to a close, one thing was unmistakably clear: this was not just the return of a former president, it was the beginning of something bigger. Something calculated, something unknown, but what happened next? That's where things truly took a turn, because the most unforgettable moments of Inauguration Day weren't written in the official schedule. They happened in unscripted slips, unexpected reactions, and unmissable symbolism that made this day unlike any inauguration in American history. While the Capitol ceremony delivered its share of spectacle and tension, what truly electrified the nation were the unscripted moments, the offbeat, the bizarre, and the unexpectedly human. Asterisk asterisk, these flashes of unrehearsed reality pulled back the velvet curtain of ceremony and revealed something far more powerful: vulnerability. Audacity and a touch of chaos. Asterisk, let's start with a woman standing just inches from the center of global attention, Melania Trump. Her appearance, flawless and composed, quickly made headlines. Her powder blue outfit, paired with a perfectly angled pillbox hat, screamed elegance. Asterisk asterisk, but as Trump leaned in for what should have been a celebratory kiss, a small yet painfully awkward timing hiccup turned a polished moment into a viral meme. The kiss was half miss, half embrace, and fully replayed across social media within minutes. Commentators chuckled, hashtags exploded, and just like that, the most composed duo in American politics reminded everyone they're human too. Asterisk, but it wasn't just the Trumps generating buzz. One of the most polarizing moments came from an unlikely source: Elon Musk. Cameras caught him sitting with unnerving stillness, expression unreadable. Then, during a ceremonial salute, Elon raised his hand. In a gesture that instantly divided viewers. Was it a misinterpreted wave? A salute with unintended implications? The internet had opinions. Lots of them. Asterisk, the backlash was fast, fierce, and deeply polarized. Was it disrespect? Was it sarcasm? Ellen's response came swiftly via X, formerly Twitter. Next time I'll just wave. Lesson learned. Asterisk asterisk, the tweet was light-hearted, but the subtext lingered. Some believed it was a smokescreen for an intentional gesture. Others chalked it up to Musk being, well, Musk. Either way, the narrative was his now, and so was the spotlight. Asterisk, and then came the musical debacle when country icon Carrie Underwood took the stage. Her rendition of God Bless America was poised to become a highlight, but midway through, her mic cut out. For a full 3 seconds, the world held its breath. Asterisk asterisk, then like a true professional she dropped the mic altogether, metaphorically speaking, and launched into an a cappella version that brought the crowd to their feet. Audience members joined in, voices swelling into a spontaneous choir. In a ceremony filled with political theatrics, it was this raw moment of human resilience that drew the loudest applause. Asterisk, not to be outdone, Billy Ray Cyrus followed, adding his gravelly southern charm to a rendition of This Land Is Your Land. But it wasn't just his performance that people were talking about, it was his outfit. A red, white, and blue leather jacket with glittering rhinestones. Some called it patriotic. Others called it a crime against fashion. Either way, the internet had a field day. Asterisk, and then just when it felt like the pageantry was settling into predictability, the sky lit up. A drone light show, organized and funded by none other than Elon Musk himself, filled the night sky above the National Mall. Dozens of synchronized drones danced through the air, forming glowing eagles, animated stars, and finally, a high-resolution depiction of the American flag waving majestically across the heavens. Asterisk asterisk, it was part spectacle, part tech flex, and fully unforgettable. It wasn't on the official program, but everyone knew what it meant. The private sector wasn't just watching history, it was shaping it. Yet, amidst all the grand gestures, it was the smaller moments that stuck. Kim Kardashian, yes, that Kim was seen in the crowd animatedly explaining the ceremony to her daughter North. Caught on camera mid-gesture, her commentary quickly went viral, with some dubbing it Inauguration Day with Auntie Kim. Asterisk asterisk, her appearance wasn't just a curiosity. It sparked fresh speculation about her political ambitions. Could she run? Would she? Was her presence calculated? In a day full of scripted declarations, this of all things felt real. Asterisk, children, in general, were a recurring theme. Young kids waving flags, chatting with journalists, and beaming in the cold January air reminded onlookers that the pageantry wasn't just about power, it was about legacy. The next generation watched closely and, in many ways, stole the spotlight. With their innocence and enthusiasm, asterisk, and just when it seemed like nothing else could catch anyone off guard, the parade revealed one final twist: therapy dogs. Yes, alongside military displays and precision marching bands. Entire sections of the parade featured golden retrievers, labradors, and even a few pint-sized corgis. Decked out in patriotic collars. The dogs offered comfort, posed for selfies, and brought a sense of warmth that felt out of place and yet perfectly timed. One child was overheard saying, "The dogs are my favorite part," a sentiment that may have reflected the inner thoughts of more than a few adults in the crowd, but as entertaining as all these moments were, they paled in comparison to what happened next, because no one, not the press, not the guests, not even those closest to the Trump family, could have predicted the entrance of one towering figure who seemed to change the tone of the entire event with a single appearance, Barron. Trump. No longer the quiet teenager we remembered, not just present but transformed. And what his presence meant would soon eclipse everything else. As the spotlight continued to dance across the Capitol steps, there was one moment, quiet, unplanned, yet seismic, that began to ripple across the crowd like a wave of recognition. It wasn't a former president or tech titan. It wasn't a celebrity or political firebrand. It was Barron Trump. For months, years, even Barron had kept a low profile, tucked away from the relentless noise of political headlines. The public last remembered him as the reserved, almost elusive child who rarely appeared alongside his father. But what unfolded on that cold January afternoon was nothing short of astonishing. Barron Trump stepped forward, tall, commanding, and completely transformed. At 18 years old, he towered above everyone around him, standing at a jaw-dropping 6'9". His presence was impossible to ignore, even next to his father, who himself stands at 6'3". Barron seemed larger than life. Dressed in a sharply tailored black suit and crisp white shirt, his silhouette cut through the crowd like a knife through still water. The resemblance was eerie, not just in appearance but in posture, in demeanor, in energy. It was as though the former president had been cloned, recast in a new generation. Social media exploded. Hashtag Barron Trump, hashtag like father like son, and hashtag future president began trending within minutes. Side-by-side video comparisons surfaced, clips of Donald's signature mannerisms played beside Barron's calm, composed stance. The mirroring was undeniable. His stillness, his hand placement, the subtle nods, all of it was intentional or instinctual. And it spooked people because Barron didn't just look like his father, he felt like him, and that's what had people talking. This wasn't the quiet boy from the East Wing anymore. This was someone new, someone calculated. Someone who understood, perhaps better than anyone else, the optics of power, and yet he said nothing. Barron's silence became a narrative of its own. While others gave speeches, shook hands, waved to cameras, Barron observed. He smiled gently at audience members, exchanged brief greetings, but never tried to steal the show. His restraint, his subtle charm, made him an instant enigma. One commentator tweeted, "Barron Trump didn't speak a word today, but somehow said everything." It wasn't long before pundits began speculating, was this an intentional unveiling? A soft launch of a future political player? Could we be looking at a new Trump dynasty figurehead, one molded not by scandal but by strategy? Barron, it turned out, wasn't just attending history, he was becoming part of it, but even as admirers swooned, critics pushed back. Some questioned the media frenzy. Are we really obsessing over the height and posture of an 18-year-old while overlooking real policy issues? One op-ed blasted. The response was swift and mixed. Too many. Barron's presence wasn't a distraction. It was a symbol of legacy, of continuity, of the quiet preparation that happens behind closed doors. Insiders, however, painted a different picture. Sources close to the Trump family described Barron as the most introspective of the children. He'd spent the last few years away from the spotlight, enrolling at NYU, excelling academically, and diving into sports, especially basketball. which might explain his towering frame. One former classmate described him as low-key, incredibly sharp, and surprisingly humble. You'd never guess he was a Trump, and yet the transformation was real. Barron had once been a symbol of the first family's attempt to shield their youngest from the spotlight. Now, he was being positioned intentionally or not as the bridge between Donald's past and the family's future. His presence carried a powerful message. The Trump story wasn't overdone. In fact, it may have just begun its next chapter. A subtle but powerful moment sealed this idea. As Donald Trump stood at the podium, arms lifted, face radiant with the energy of returned power, Barron stood just behind him, silent, still, watchful. Their eyes didn't meet, but the framing said it all. This wasn't just a son attending his father's ceremony. This was a future being quietly, deliberately introduced, and the crowd, they felt it. Whether history will view Barron's Inauguration Day debut as a political birth or just a viral spectacle remains to be seen. But one thing was certain: this moment etched him into the national consciousness, not as a child, not as a background figure, but as a presence, a symbol. A wild card, and while the crowd slowly filtered out, still buzzing over his transformation, the day's final and most jaw-dropping moment was about to unfold, and it involved a name no one expected to be trending: Hillary Clinton. As the crowd settled into a strange mixture of awe and exhaustion, no one expected what came next. It was the final minutes of Donald Trump's return to power, the moment when the speech is winding down, the photographers are packing up, and the networks are beginning to cut away. But Trump, always the showman, had one last card to play. It came casually, tucked into the tail end of his inaugural address. The delivery was calm, the wording almost benign, but the impact immediate and seismic. And starting today, Trump declared, his voice thick with confidence, we will no longer refer to the body of water off our southern coast as the Gulf of Mexico. From this day forward, it shall be known as the Gulf of America. The words hung in the air, disorienting and surreal. The pause afterward wasn't silent. It was electric. There was a moment, barely a breath, where the crowd didn't quite react. And then, like a wave, it hit. Applause, cheers, whistles, stunned laughter. But not everyone was clapping, because not everyone believed it was real. Cameras immediately panned to the audience, and one shot changed the mood instantly. Hillary Clinton, her reaction was as subtle as it was powerful. A twitch of the eyebrows. The faintest smile, part disbelief, part amusement. Then she leaned in toward her husband, whispering something that made Bill chuckle beneath his breath. The exchange lasted seconds, but it was enough. Within minutes, the moment was everywhere. A single clip zoomed, looped, slowed down, dominated the airwaves. Social media exploded with speculation. What did she say? Was she mocking the rebrand? Was it an inside joke, a commentary on Trump himself? The symbolism couldn't be ignored. A former Secretary of State, a former First Lady, a former presidential candidate reacting live to one of the most bizarre and audacious declarations in inaugural history. And here's the kicker, this wasn't satire. Trump was serious. The Gulf of America, he repeated, as if testing the name in his mouth. A symbol of the strength, unity, and dominance of our great nation. For his supporters, it was vintage Trump, bold, defiant, nationalistic, and headline-ready. For his critics, it was absurdist theater masquerading as governance, but for the global community, it was a diplomatic grenade. International responses came fast. Mexico's president released a tight-lipped statement that managed to be both diplomatic and deeply disapproving. The Gulf of Mexico is a name rooted in centuries of shared geography and cultural history, he said. We trust in the resilience of international cooperation and mutual respect. Other leaders responded more creatively. Canada's Deputy Prime Minister quipped, "Well, in that case, maybe we'll rename Niagara Falls to the polite Canadian splash zone." France's foreign minister was more biting. "If America wants to rename oceans, perhaps we should consider renaming the Eiffel Tower to the Freedom Spire, *. But while global leaders debated and diplomats scrambled, back in Washington the focus remained on Hillary's reaction. It wasn't just her expression, it was what it represented: a moment of authenticity amidst an ocean of posturing. It reminded the public that even seasoned political figures aren't immune to the absurd. That even Hillary Clinton, polished and composed, could be caught off guard by a man she's battled politically for decades, *. And in that moment, something rare happened. She became relatable. Memes flooded the internet. Side-by-side comparisons of her expression with famous movie characters. Captions like "When your group project partner renames the planet" trended for hours. The public, for once, seemed to laugh with her, not at her, *. But beneath the humor was something more serious. Because Trump's bold renaming wasn't just symbolic, it raised a constitutional and diplomatic question. Could a U.S. president unilaterally rename a body of water shared with another nation? What are the geopolitical implications of such a move? Could it affect treaties, navigation charts, education systems? * Legal scholars weighed in with cautious skepticism. Executive power doesn't extend to rewriting geography, one historian said, but if anyone can ignite that debate, it's Donald Trump. Meanwhile, conservative media outlets celebrated the announcement as a statement of strength. "It's about time we stopped branding our geography with someone else's name," one anchor said. "This is Trump saying we write the narrative now." * Progressive voices pushed back. Renaming a sea isn't patriotism, it's theater, a prominent analyst argued, and worse, it's distracting us from real issues. But Trump had done what he always does: he dominated the conversation, and once again he had forced his opponents to react. * Hillary Clinton, knowingly or not, became a symbol of that reaction. Her smile, her whisper, her raised eyebrows, those were the viral images that told a deeper story. Not of geography, not even of politics, but of cultural divide. Of two Americas watching the same moment and seeing completely different realities. *. And for those who watched closely, that was the most telling part of the entire day. Because as strange as it sounds, history might not remember January 20th, 2025, for Donald Trump's return to power, or even the rebranding of an entire Gulf. It might remember a woman in the crowd smiling, stunned, and whispering as the world watched and realized once again that in Trump's America, nothing is too absurd to be true. In the hours that followed Donald Trump's second inauguration, one thing became obvious even to his harshest critics: this wasn't just another transfer of power. It was a carefully engineered display of dominance, disruption, and symbolism. But the real story, it wasn't in the oath. It wasn't even in the renaming of the Gulf. The story lived in the undercurrents, in the body language, the unexpected guests, the tech billionaires quietly seated in the front rows, and the subtle power shifts hiding in plain sight. * Because Inauguration Day 2025 wasn't just a political event. It was a power play designed for a digital age. A spectacle engineered not only for those in the Capitol, but for the millions watching from phones, tablets, and smart TVs across the globe. Let's talk about that for a moment. In the past, inaugurations were built around unity, tradition, and formality. But this was built around virality. Every detail seemed to ask, will this trend? And nearly every moment did. * From the awkward kiss between Donald and Melania that launched 1,000 memes, to Elon Musk's controversial salute that sent conspiracy forums into a frenzy, to Carrie Underwood's Mike failure turned spontaneous national sing-along, to Barron Trump's silent, striking debut. Every frame of this day was tailor-made to dominate timelines, and it did, but behind that virality was something much colder. Much more calculated, asterisk, because if you strip away the music, the fashion, the jokes and memes, you're left with a message. A declaration not just of Trump's return, but of what this return means. This was a warning shot across the bow of establishment norms. A reminder that Trump's second act would not be bound by history, precedent, or diplomatic niceties. Asterisk, and no, where was that clearer than in his closing announcement? The renaming of the Gulf of Mexico. It was absurd on its face, unenforceable, legally dubious, internationally inflammatory, but it was also pure Trump. Asterisk, he wasn't expecting the world to accept it. He was expecting the world to react, and react it did. The announcement dominated the news cycle for days. Not policy, not diplomacy, not international strategy, just a name. A symbol. That's the genius and the danger of Trump's media instincts. He understands better than most that in the age of short attention spans, it's not the most important story that wins. It's the most interesting one, asterisk, and perhaps the most interesting moment of all. Hillary Clinton's reaction, because in that split-second, one eyebrow raise, one whisper, one smirk, she embodied everything the opposition had tried to contain. For nearly a decade, disbelief, fatigue, and a quiet recognition that, somehow, he was back, asterisk, and he was winning the narrative again. But even deeper than that was the question no one wanted to ask out loud: what does this mean for 2029? That's right. As surreal as it sounds, pundits and analysts were already game planning the next election before the parade had even ended, and Barron, he was now at the center of it all, a symbol of continuity, a mystery. A projection screen for the hopes or fears of millions, and while some dismissed his appearance as a mere family obligation, others weren't so sure. His polished appearance, his presence, the perfect camera framing, it felt less like an accident and more like a soft launch. A new character being introduced in Season 2, asterisk, because politics today isn't just governance, it's performance, and Barron Trump had just delivered the most watched, most dissected, most meme-worthy debut of the entire day, without saying a single word. Meanwhile, Trump himself had reclaimed the role he never truly abandoned. Not just the presidency, but the center of every conversation, asterisk, the man who once said, "I alone can fix it," was back with more confidence, fewer restraints, and an audience that had never stopped watching. So where does that leave us? With questions, unanswered, uncomfortable, haunting questions. Is the renaming of the Gulf just a test balloon for more audacious power moves? Will Trump's second term redefine American diplomacy or unravel it? Is Barron Trump being shaped into the future of the dynasty or just a decoy? Asterisk, and perhaps most chilling of all, if this was just the inauguration, what on earth comes next as we fade from the red, white, and blue banners flapping in the wind? One truth remains: Inauguration Day 2025 wasn't just a historical footnote. It was the prologue. And the next chapter, we're already living it.